everyone. Thanks for coming. Okay, so do we begin now? Okay, it seems like we can begin now. So thanks everyone for joining this panel. I'm really glad to have you here. See some couple of familiar faces, so glad for you to show up. So today's topic is about Singapore's contribution to the global scene in Web3. So not just Singapore for Singapore, but on the global front. And why do we say this? Because I think for all of us here on the panel, I'll let them introduce themselves later, but I think truly Web3 is one of the rare industries that, there are a lot of born and raised firms or MNCs that actually choose to pick Singapore as their global HQ for the global presence. So not so much, just for Asia's market, but really the global market. So it's a pretty rare industry that we see here in Singapore. So a quick round of introductions. My name is Sharon. I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called HQ.xyz. We do treasury management for businesses in crypto, helping them, behave responsibly like any good company should. My former life was formerly in StraightSax, one of the leading stable coins here in Singapore. So maybe I'll pass on the mic for maybe Chinta. You can begin first.
Great. Hey, thanks, Sharon, and a very good afternoon, one and all. My name is Chinta. I'm the General Manager for Crypto.com, the Singapore market. We are proudly licensed and headquartered here in Singapore, where we serve our 100 million customers worldwide. In my previous life, since Sharon is talking about good old days, right, I used to be a public servant with the EDB. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to build great and competitive sectors in Singapore that create great jobs, add value to the economy. And I'm very, very excited here to talk about Web3 and how important it is, not just to Singapore, but also the role that Singapore plays in Web3 regionally and globally.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric.
Very nice.
I'm the CEO of AAA. AAA is a stablecoin payment gateway. We're headquartered in Singapore, and we're essentially helping businesses to pay or get paid with stablecoins without ever touching that. And if we need to talk about the past, I've been doing normal payments without crypto or stablecoins. I was the founder of a company called Tunes.
Hello, hi. This is Kimmy from SG Builders. We are a Web3 startup community of Web3 builders and founders based in Singapore. And previously, before I was working in the Fintech space, like card issuer processor, remittance, and delighted to be here now representing Web3 community.
Okay. So I'll maybe kick things off by just, acknowledging that a lot of things have changed in the past 2 years for our industry. So exactly 2 years ago, really infamous exchanges crashed in the very month of November. It brought down the whole industry with it. But 2 years forward, just over the past 2 days, we hit an all-time high for Bitcoin, for example. So it has been really a big change in just a short span of 2 years. So maybe starting with Chinta, I think given that you've also been in Crypto.com from almost pretty much 2 years as well, what do you think have changed? And I think specifically in Singapore, we have seen a lot of boost in companies like building in Singapore. Like really what do you think has changed in the past 2 years, despite there being such a huge dump 2 years ago?
Well, I'd like to begin first by saying that I take no responsibility for what's happened in the industry in the past 2 years. I think it's just a matter of timing. Very happy to see that things are coming back to the fore. And in my very, very short time in the industry, I've been very impressed to see how it has grown over time, in particular institutional adoption. Very recently, we announced a partnership with payments companies like Ingenico, and we also secured a partnership with 21 Shares, right? So the idea here is this is proof positive that there's not just increasing interest in crypto as an asset category, but in fact, institutional investors are taking notice. They're sitting up, right? And we see this not only in the financial sector, we see a lot of different companies starting to look at it in different use cases. So overall, I think the picture is rosy. I'm very excited about the future.
Okay. Maybe I'll direct it specifically to Kimmy as well. I think since what has happened in the past 2 years, I myself, and part of this community that Kimmy has been very heavily involved called SG Builders. Why do you think you see so many foreign builders choosing Singapore to be their base over the past 2 years?
Yeah. I think firstly it's because Singapore is a really nice country for foreigners to be based in. I've been personally in Singapore for 15 years. And I think another one is Singapore is home to a lot of capital, VCs, exchanges, market makers. And I think this is like what would draw startups to Singapore. So for example, like right now we're hosting a demo day where we flew in 16 startups around APAC to Singapore to meet the VCs here. So I think this is what would draw startups to Singapore.
Maybe just leading on to that, like maybe Eric, I think you come from an interesting profile where you chose to, I guess, start a company again. And out of so many countries, you started to pick Singapore. So maybe you can just walk your journey through with us.
I've been living in Singapore for 20 years and I've been starting a couple of companies here. So as an entrepreneur, Singapore is kind of a paradise. And if you're in the Web3 space, we've been very lucky because Singapore was the first developed jurisdiction to have proper digital currency regulation. So that's really a major advantage of Singapore in the global scene.
Okay. But I guess leading up from that, because it sounds like what I'm hearing is that Singapore is convenient to build. So maybe a bit contentious, but maybe I think, Eric, you can take this question first as well. But Singapore is a small country compared to many places. So wondering how difficult or not is it if, let's say, your target market, is it just Singapore-based, or how do you actually address the go-to-market on a global level?
Yeah, because we're addressing mostly cross-border payment subjects, so Singapore is an ideal base because there's a lot of multinational companies doing business. So when we're working with someone like Razer, for instance, even though it's a Singapore headquarter company, but they're selling anywhere in the world. So that's one of the things they like with digital currency, because then they can sell their games or equipments anywhere on the planet thanks to using stable coins.
Okay. Maybe either Chintel or Kimmy, feel free to add on.
What a thought that comes to mind is a lot is said about Singapore's small size, but I think because this is the digital industry and it is blockchain, it is literally virtual, right? So I think this is one way for Singapore to kind of like escape its geographic destiny and play a very important role. This sounds like a pitch I used to give to many investors to convince them to come to Singapore. But the idea here is it's a great place to live, as Kimmy has mentioned. There's rule of law, it's stable, and I think it's become a very nice convening location for people, not just from around the region, but from around the world, right? So I've been very impressed by all these builders who come from Korea, the US, China, Europe, and they are like very enthusiastic about the stuff they are making in Singapore. And I'm like very touched because it was such an ongoing challenge for the government to think about how can we capture value, how can we create these jobs here. But here we are seeing something that's very grassroots driven, happening naturally with, I think, one of my friends termed it as benign neglect from the Singapore government. But we really hope that the sector will continue to grow and perhaps get a little bit more support from the powers that are and the powers that be.
Okay, I just want to give a pause for a little bit because I noticed the QR is actually on screen. If anyone is working in Web3 right now, like feel free to just scan it as this panel happens. Essentially, it is a on-the-ground industry report that we are doing to find out what are the issues on the ground that Web3 might be facing, all right? So maybe I think on that note as well, Kimmy, maybe since you work with so many either founders or operators on the ground representing brands here, what are, however, some of the challenges that people might have faced setting up in Singapore or operating here? But over time, maybe how have you observed that people overcome that too?
I actually think Singapore doesn't sell itself more, like compared to like other startup hubs, because Singapore is obviously a very easy place for people to incorporate. There is a lot of local talents. There is now because there is a lot of people now based in Singapore, there's also like a positive loop of, because now there's a startup ecosystem here, people are also being drawn to Singapore. But I feel that compared to like other, I guess like Web3 ecosystem hubs like Dubai and Hong Kong, Singapore doesn't emphasize this enough. I think like how people, I guess, like get around it is like as people come here, they will meet the startup founders here, and this is actually how like this SG Builders company started as well, where the foreign founders were like getting help on like, hey, how do I incorporate here? Like, how do I get my SIM card? Like, so this is how it actually started. Yeah.
Okay, and it's quite interesting, but so far, the report that I just mentioned is actually an actual report that we are going through the past few months. And so far, the results have shown that a lot of the companies that are based here do have really concrete plans to expand their team, so i.e. hiring for next year, like almost majority of them. So I think really for anyone can just take this question, but like, if everyone is really fighting for talent, like how are you all going about hiring? Are they all from Singapore? Like what's your hiring plans usually, even though your companies are based here? How do you want to take that?
So maybe you have framed it as a challenge. I frame it as an opportunity, especially for the people in the audience today. It means that a lot of jobs are being created, right? So companies like AAA, Emergo, the SG Builders, Crypto.com, we are based here, we have significant operations here. And not only the companies that are in the Web3 vertical, you should think of Web3 as a horizontal, because I see some friends in the audience who work for KPMG, the professional services firms, the banks, they are also Web3 professionals. And that's why I mean by Web3 is a horizontal, right? Many jobs are being created in this area. Now, coming back to your question, that means maybe there's a bit of competition for talent. I would rather not think of it that way. I think Singapore remains a very attractive place for people to come to. And I think for an emerging area that's breaking new ground, you do need that mix of that international plus local flavor, right? So I think that's not a problem, that's actually a feature. It's something beneficial to the tech ecosystem. At the same time, we are working with industry. Just yesterday, I was on stage giving out certificates for the Blockchain Guardians program, which is a program that Ali Vandy, now known as GTFN, a 3-month program for students to kind of like train themselves in compliance, right? So 28 people graduated from the first cohort. So that's really exciting because it means that industry is coming together, Crypto.com, Amazon.com, as well as TRM Labs coming together to support a non-profit entity to train the next generation of Web3 talent. And I think we'll see more and more of this happening. So that's how, in some small part, we will start contributing to improving the talent pipeline.
Yeah, to build on that, I would say as well is like as Web3 is eating into the financial world, it means that the talent pool is increasing. It's for sure if you're trying to find someone having like 10 years of experience in Web3, that's going to be tough. But what we're saying is that the talent pool is increasing because a lot of financial institutions, the classical financial institutions, are moving into Web3.
Okay.
I think this kind of programs are like really great to like introduce more talents into the ecosystem. Because I feel like if you're a large company like Crypto.com or AAA, it's a lot easier to attract the young talents who are interested in Web3. But if you're a startup and you need experienced hires, I feel like there is this gap between the young talents and the experienced talents in Singapore. I think this kind of programs is great. And we're also trying to like encourage more internship programs with Web3 companies in Singapore to nurture people who are new to Web3 to the industry.
Okay, it's kind of the last question here before we open the floor for more questions. This is going back to, I guess, just your own business opportunities that each of you all see here. Because I think Web3 has kind of become a little bit more mainstream now compared to the years before. Stablecoins volume is apparently like over 2 trillion. It's like really big apparently. But there's so many facets, right? There's tokenization of real world assets. In payments, it's been kind of going off the charts too. But also in whether or not it's in the consumer space or whether it's in the institutional space. So maybe just as a way to close up, I think, what do you see moving forward for the incoming year? Where do you yourself see a great opportunity in, and I guess for Singapore's role as well?
On our side, I think one of the things which, for the Singapore market, one of the launch we did with Grab, to enable Grab to accept digital currency payment. I think that's really helped everybody in Singapore to understand what it means concretely to use crypto for payments. So really what I'm trying to do is to sign the Grab equivalent in the rest of the world so that everybody understands that this is something everybody can do.
we are very excited about the future because we think the future is a convergent one. I get this question a lot, is crypto going to be the future? I think, again, crypto is not going to be the entire future, but it's going to be part of the future, and it's a one that is very convergent of DeFi plus TradFi, right? So similarly for Crypto.com, we just announced our roadmap for the coming years just yesterday, where you'll see that we'll tack on more TradFi type functionality and assets onto our platform, which will give our users more access and more wherewithal to manage their wealth and their financial future, take control of their money and identity. So this is a future that's not just we are creating and pushing for. We see more of this happening across the industry. And it really throws back the original product that we were launched with, which was the Visa prepaid card, which launched in 2018 in Singapore, right? So I think the past has always been convergent, the future will be even more so.
Nice. Kimmy, any comments on it? Any observations?
I think, so I've been to SFF like 4 years in a row now, and this year I've seen a lot more crypto startups and companies like at the SFF itself. So I'm actually very excited. I think because like infrastructure like stablecoins, and also a lot of the crypto capital is based in Singapore, it's a naturally positive loop where we see more and more startups being attracted to Singapore. I would have been slightly even more bullish because I think now people, I thought, okay, since Trump won, US is probably also quite a crypto-friendly place. I would have been even more bullish if that happened in Singapore. But yes, I'm very bullish about Singapore being a Web3 ecosystem.
Thank you. Okay, with the remaining few minutes, we will just open the floor if anyone have any questions or anything like that. Okay, if there is none, then that's about it. So thank you so much for coming by. I think thank you all three of you for joining in as well. So shout out, I think here's a way to close. I think this was really just to put center stage of Singapore's contribution at a global level for our industry and beyond. So who knows next year what will end up being. Hopefully this becomes really obvious that you start to see a lot of Singapore companies being like basically the global #1 versions of the categories. Okay, thank you everyone and have a good rest of the day.